What's up, everybody? It's Alex from Heavy New York, and on the phone we got Zachary from Imperial Triumphant. Thank you for your time today, man. It's great to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's so awesome to talk to you right now because you have your new album, Alphaville, scheduled to come out this summer. Do you just want to talk about how the making of this record was and the recording? Do you consider this just picking up where you left off after Vile Luxury, or is this like a new start for Imperial in a way?
That's a great question. I would say it's probably a bit of both, but it definitely is not a Vile Luxury 2. It's just definitely its own thing, and we're sort of, like you said, picked up where we left off. We're working with the same engineer, Colin Marston, at Menegroth in Queens, which is just a sheer pleasure to record in. And this time we had Trace Bruins as our producer, which made the whole experience a lot more. How could you say? It felt just enlightened, and to have a new set of ears that weren't the band working on the music. And he definitely brought a lot of new ideas and fresh takes on what we're doing to the table. So that was just fantastic.
Yeah. Is there ever a preconceived idea on how you want an album to sound like, or do things kind of in a way happen by accident or more organically or subconsciously?
No, definitely they definitely, it varies a little bit to a little bit. We definitely had some sort of plan for this record, doing we wanted it to be a little higher production as far as flicker guitars and drums and such, and just kind of get away from the really obscure tones that we've had on the Abyssal Gods record and such. But at the same time, we're always open to whatever may happen in the studio. So there's a lot of happy mistakes, if you will.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Because at this point in your career, do you have a sound that you try to stick with, maybe a formula in a way, or is there kind of a lot of experimentation that's involved?
Yeah, we're definitely open to experimenting. There's no set tone, I would say, but we definitely have a sound that is Imperial Triumphant, and the kind of style that we play in when all three of us are playing together is, I think, very unique to us.
You have elements of black metal, you have elements of death metal. There's so many epic elements in your side that I'd imagine that you take inspiration from multiple sources, right?
Oh, that's absolutely true. Yeah, we're certainly not afraid of looking beyond the metal world for inspiration, and it's definitely paid off very well for us. And I definitely, as far as that kind of sound, we're always going to keep experimenting. It'll always sound like us because it's us playing, but the sky's the limit as far as where we could end up drawing inspiration from.
Mm-hmm. This is also, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is also the first record to come out on Century Media, right?
Yeah. We just signed with them last fall.
Yeah, and Century Media, I've noticed lately too, Century Media has been a real capital in a lot of modern death metal bands. They have Vitriol and Hideous Divinity. They signed Watain and Mayhem and all those guys. But with so many, Lorna Shore, it almost seems like they are the perfect label at the perfect time, right, for your style to sort of sign with.
Absolutely, I think that they've been nothing but fantastic so far, and I think that they're definitely a label that doesn't rest on their back catalog, so to speak. They definitely are actively looking for the next great band, and bands that are hungry, and bands that people like, and aren't just putting up big numbers or big sales. They bands that people are actually interested in. We're definitely very happy to be on their roster.
Yeah, and again, a real variety too, with bands like Lacuna Coil, but then they've also had Dark Tranquility and Shadows Fall in the past, and then you guys,
and Body Count.
Yep, Body Count. You can't miss that.
It's so cool to be on the same label as Ice-T, man.
Yeah, that's incredible. So it almost seems like that they really trusted in your vision of what Imperial Triumphant's all about, right?
Certainly, before we signed with them, I spoke to the label director and kind of gave him my plan of what I wanted to do with the band and the next album, and he really just trusted in us, and there was no, you need to do this, you need to do that, it needs to sound like this. Mm-hmm. They really just put their faith in us, and we're really happy to have delivered what we believe to be a really quality record.
Yeah, I've noticed, like, when you look at, like, these songs, like, could a single that you release off this album almost serve as, like, a clear representation of what the entirety of the album is going to sound like? Like, could one person appreciate, Excelsior, they could also appreciate City Swine, and then, if a person appreciates The Greater Good, they could appreciate Alphaville. Like, could maybe one song represent the whole album, or do you think listeners would have a better understanding if they started off with Rotted Futures and ended with The Greater Good?
I think that's the best way to take it in, is just from beginning to end. We're just, for example, I think, like, it just, how can I say this? It's an experience, and we put a lot of thought into the track listing and the flow of the album, how one song ends and how the next one's going to begin. And each song is so different. That's another thing that we really strive for, is to not just put every song in the same key, sort of make it the same tempo or whatever. We really try to make them each stand out, so that it will definitely take you a few minutes or a few listens to fully soak in the record. There'll be songs that you remember, like, upon first listening. So there's that. We're basically trying to sculpt a catchier record while not actually putting any, like, choruses or anything,
Mm-hmm. Well, that's interesting. Is it almost kind of like each song is representative of a moment in time that you guys are currently feeling?
I wouldn't say that so much, but each song is about something different, so it should reflect this lyrical matter. That's something we play with a lot, is making the lyrics of a song apply to just that song and be specific to that subject matter, so that, Atomic Age is going to feel like a bomb drop, It's not just, you can't just put these lyrics over any other song.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting. Is it fair to say that the lyrics or the concept could determine the outcome of the music itself, or do you not really think of a concept?
Absolutely.
Oh, okay.
I mean, when it comes to writing songs, we're super diverse. Every song has a different path, and sometimes it'll be completely written by one person on sheet music, and then everyone learns it, or it's hashed out in the rehearsal space together, or it's just an idea for a song title, and then from that spews the whole tune. So it really changes based on each song.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting. Is the music open to interpretation, or do you try to maybe engage the listener into the story?
I'd say a little bit of both. It's sort of a story with a lot of open endings, where we want to kind of like lead you, but make you kind of think and fill in the gaps with your own creative mind.
Mm-hmm. So if the listener were to, like, listen to this album on shuffle or something like that, they wouldn't have, like, a full understanding of the entire story.
On shuffle, no, I wouldn't say so.
Mm-hmm.
But I still think that even if you read the lyrics, and understood the music, there's still going to be a lot of interpretation left up to the listener, which I think makes it kind of more fun.
Mm-hmm. One thing I've always found interesting about Imperial Triumphant is, like, obviously your photo shoots. Do you almost kind of, like, in a way portray a character in your music and in your live shows in a way?
I guess you could put it that way. I never felt like I was portraying a character or any specific character, but I guess considering the fact that I'm wearing a mask and, my actions are definitely different than off stage, you could definitely say that there's sort of another role I'm taking on aside than just guitar player. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that because I was always curious to. Do you almost kind of have to the way that you portray yourself live when you're making the music? Do you almost have to channel in like a similar energy in a way, or is playing live and writing music just a completely separate creative process altogether?
I mean, it all just comes natural. Like playing the music live, sort of is the most fun part because by the time you finished a record, you're so sick of the music, like listen to it. But then when you play it live, all the joy of the song you've created comes back to life, and it's recreated in that exact moment. And the attitude and persona that you bring on stage just comes out naturally the way that you feel about the music.
Did the vision of how you portray yourself on stage and in the music come after you've already had music written, like when you put out the demo in 2008, or did this?
Yeah, of course. We even did a few tours with no masks and stuff. You know, it was probably around 2015 or 16 that we started discussing a live stage costume or such, and wanted to really try to portray the music in our visual presentation. So we ended up, getting masks and figuring out how to build upon them, and they've been evolving ever since. And that's been a really fun project to sort of keep developing our live production. The more we can.
Do more visions come into play as you are creating new music? Like, can we maybe be getting a different side of you when you take Alphaville out on the road?
Of course. We're hoping to, be able to build the production and make it bigger and wilder, and hopefully that every time someone comes to a show, they're experiencing a better live show, a crazier production, and a new experience.
When it comes to getting inspired, whether it is, writing the music itself or thinking of concepts, do you almost kind of need to put yourself in a certain place in a certain time in order for ideas to come through, or does inspiration just come out of nowhere sometimes?
Oh, it definitely comes out of nowhere. It'll hit you out of nowhere. I'll just be, sitting on a train and I'll hear a noise, or I'll be walking down the street and I'll hear a siren go by with that Doppler effect, and I'll think, oh wow, that's really interesting. How can I play that on my guitar? If I was gonna, write a song about a bomb dropping, how would I create an air raid siren with my guitar sound? Like these sort of ideas, they just come to me not out of choice. There's no real moment where I'm like, okay, I'm gonna sit down and have a glass of tea and figure this one out,
Do you almost have to keep a notebook on you at all times just so you know?
Oh, I do.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I always got a notebook on me, just writing down ideas or goals or whatever. It really helps to stay on track and stay realized.
Yeah, because I'd imagine nothing would be worse than having the best idea and just forgetting about it 10 minutes later, right?
Yeah, I mean that. Absolutely, I write down in my notebook on my phone, and if I don't have either on me, or if I just have a really great idea, I'll just tell someone about it so that they remember it for me.
Yeah, of course. Being that your music is so experimental, having very raw elements and very technical elements, you almost feel like that you could play with maybe a variety of different bands. Like you could play with black metal bands, but then play with a more death metal oriented audience, and so on and so forth.
Absolutely, and that's something we really hope to do once the touring thing gets back on track. We'd like to play with, hard metal bands, and then also maybe play more like Melvins or Mr. Bungle kind of bands, more experimental stuff. I think there's a wide variety of audiences that would appreciate what we're doing more than just the hardcore death and black metal fans.
Yeah, of course. And being that you almost have this, unique stage presence in this production, do you almost kind of have to rehearse a choreography before you bring your stuff out on the road too? Obviously every band has to practice the material, that's the most important element, but I'd imagine that there's almost kind of a choreography element behind your stage presence as well, right?
Well, have you seen us live?
I have not yet. The Devastation on the Nation tour was supposed to be my first time.
Well, we'll be on that one again, and we'll have some crazy shit going on. But
yeah.
No, there's definitely some, light choreography, I guess you could say, on the without giving away too much, fucking like on the last European tour we had installed LED lights into the eyes of our mask, and we were thinking, okay, at the end of the second to last song, we'll flick the lights on, and that'll be like the big kind of finale. Is the last song will have these glowing eyes. So we kind of small things like that. We have to keep it pretty DIY at the moment, but the bigger we get, and the more money we can put into production, and then that's when things can get really creative.
Awesome. You guys would be like a black metal version of Slipknot, maybe, or something like that?
Dude, I mean, those guys have really wild shows, whether you like them or not.
Yeah.
They have the money to get just crazy stage props and all that sort of stuff. I just think it's important to put on a really killer show, whether music aside.
Yeah, especially now because people are resorting to watching shows online and everything like that. I mean, in the end, there's no piece of modern technology. Sure, these online streams are good to hold people over, but I think in the end there is nothing no piece of technology can substitute it to going to a live show for the interaction.
Absolutely not, because there's the sights, the smells, and just the raw energy of that you feel in the air when you can literally feel the kick drum. It's just so intense, and there's just the atmosphere that you just can't create digitally, for sure.
Yeah, I have two more questions for you. One of them going back to the songwriting. How do you know when a song is done? Hardest question.
Actually, it's interesting you ask that, because I always have this sort of kind of sculptor's thought about it. They say sculptors will see a block of marble and just imagine that the piece is already existing inside, and they just have to chip away at it. And I kind of feel the same way about our songs, and it's one of those things where just when you know, the song already exists in its perfect form. We just got to figure it out and figure out what notes and okay, we should cut out here, stop that, you know what, this thing needs a horn right there. And then at one moment there's just, and it's done. It's perfect.
Yeah, I like that analogy, the sculpture analogy. That's actually a really good way of putting it.
Yeah, it definitely helps us not overthink things.
Yeah,
if you like the song, you don't need to keep chipping away at it, because then you don't need to keep chipping away at a perfect sculpture.
Yeah, well, the only thing is, I feel like a sculpture is a lot less irreversible. If anything, you have a riff that you add on there that you don't like, you can just delete it. Whereas if you chip something off of a sculpture, you ain't getting that back on there.
Exactly.
Yeah. And finally, the question I wanted to ask you is, being that the band originated in New York City, hashtag heavy New York, but being that you originated in New York City, obviously with, St. Vitus and Lucky 13 and Gold Sounds and all these great, metal places in New York, was there kind of a scene that you were active in? I think one of your members was an Alekeen's Gun, right?
Yeah, in fact, that's how we met. Was my band was playing with Alekeen's Gun back at the Acheron.
Oh, wow.
Way back, and I was watching him play, and I was just thinking, this is the guy I need, I need this guy in my band. And because he was just shredding.
Yeah.
And, I don't think, we definitely hung out a lot at the Acheron. We played a lot there, and then St. Vitus has always felt like a home as well, with just great vibes and incredibly professional staff.
Yeah. Do you think the scene is in good hands at the moment, or do you think that there's stuff that the New York City scene can do better?
I don't. That's a tough question. Personally, I feel like the whole New York music scene, beyond just metal, is kind of not jaded, but feels like people are very lazy to go out to shows,
I agree.
And it's partially probably because every show comes through here, no matter what. And sometimes when you go to these small towns in the middle of the country, everyone shows up, everyone's so grateful you came through, and that's a very different energy. But I will say this, I'm very happy to be a part of the New York City metal scene, I guess, and the amount of bands and talent and great music coming out of the city right now is makes me very proud, because this is, as fucked up as the city's getting, it does have a long history of generating incredible art and incredible music. So it's really great to see bands putting forth, a super high caliber level of quality.
Yeah, I think even with, venues closing or et cetera, like, I still think that New York City will be a great capital for art. There will always be new clubs that open, new bands that emerge.
Of course.
Like, we always triumph through tragedy, including this one.
Absolutely, man.
Yep. So before we go, I want to thank you so much for your time today.
It's my pleasure, man.
Yeah, is there just anything else that you would like to promote for Imperial Triumphant? Obviously, Devastation in the Nation, definitely happening in 2021, right?
100%. We'll be there, man. Keep a lookout for us. We're trying to put together something for maybe November, and then we're going to be probably touring as much as humanly possible in 2021, promoting Alphaville. But I just wanted to say thanks for all the support.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Zachary. Everybody, we are here with Zachary of Imperial Triumphant, Alphaville, coming out via Century Media Records this summer. Be sure to pick it up then. This is Alex from Heavy New York, and we will see you next time.